So, as you may have noticed on Piazza, there is going to be an optional quiz on Thursday for extra credit, which will cover materials from weeks 1 through 3. And while you aren't required to take it, I strongly recommend you to do so that you can get practice with both the Canvas and Gradescope integration, because this is the format that we're going to be using for your first exam. And in the exam, you obviously want to be comfortable with uh, all these steps so that the only thing that you really have to be worried about is coding up your solutions to the problems themselves. Um, so in order to do that, I'm going to be walking you through the practice quiz that is available on Canvas, and I'm going to be kind of simulating kind of what you should be thinking as you take the quiz. So let's head over to Canvas, and so this is what your homepage will probably looks like. And we can go to the quizzes tab on the left, and we can see that there's a practice quiz available for us to take. So let's click on this and let's take the quiz. So here we can see there's some steps for us to follow, which I'll walk you through. So the first thing we're going to want to do is left click on this hyperlink so that we can download the Python file. And it is inside this Python file for which we're going to be writing our code. So click on left click right here to download it. We can keep it. Yep. And we can close this tab because we've already downloaded the file. All right, great. And then we can see the next step is to open the file in your editor of choice, which for most of you will probably be idle. Um, in my case, I'm just going to be using Visual Studio Code. Whatever editor you choose doesn't really matter. And then we're going to be coding up our solution to each problem in the corresponding places in the file, and we're going to be uploading this file, the file being practicequiz.py that you can see at the bottom left, to Gradescope. And it's important that you note here, you may continue to amend and re-upload your solution as many times as you'd like until time runs out. And we only grade your latest submission. So you'll see that this is actually a really good thing for you because as you're coding your solution, you probably want to kind of gauge where you stand and kind of measure how your solution is. Like, are you on the right track and are you submitting a working solution? And Gradescope will give you feedback, and it has an auto grader that will let you know um, whether your solution is correct or not. So for the quiz on Thursday, as well as the exam in the future, what I recommend you do is take a quick look at all of the problems and see, kind of evaluate the problems and see which ones do you feel really comfortable tackling like first. Because what you want to do is probably get all the points that you can up front, and if there's a problem that you aren't so sure, then you can tackle that one later and just kind of get all the points that you can up front. So in this case, what we're going to do is just take a look at the problems. So problem one is say hello. And it tells us to complete the following programs to read in the names of two of your friends and to say hello to them. And if we click on this arrow, it'll tell us about the input format for our for this problem. In other words, how are we, the TAs, going to be testing your code? And the way we're going to be doing that is we're going to be feeding in input into your program and testing to see if your program outputs the correct output. So in this case, we can see that the input format is that the first line will contain the name of your first friend and the second line contains the name of your second friend. So um, what what exactly does that even mean? So let's take a look at sample case 0 by left clicking right here. And we can see for the sample input for custom testing, so the two inputs are going to be Su Young and Dr. Young separated on new lines. And we can see that our sample output is going to be hello Su Young with an exclamation point, and hello Dr. Young. And if you take a look at sample case 1, it's pretty much the same thing. Mom and dad is going to be turned into hello mom and hello dad. And sample case 2 is going to be hello son and hello daughter because the inputs were son and daughter. Great. So I feel pretty comfortable working through this problem right now. So let's go ahead and do that. So let's go and open this Python file, which we downloaded from Canvas. And it's important that you note to not rename this file. So once you download this file, please just save the file, like make your modifications in this file and save it but do not rename it to something else like CS303E quiz1.py or something like that. Just keep it as practicequiz.py. So as we can see in this comment, it states, write your solution to problem 1 here. So let's go ahead and do that. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to get rid of the statement pass. Basically, it's just a way of letting Python know that, yes, we didn't write any code inside our function yet, but we don't want the compiler to complain at us, basically. But in this case, we're going to be writing code, so we don't need the pass. So we can start writing code here, and it's important that you start writing your solution right here, where you can see like that little blinking line instead of right here, because as you know, Python is very particular about its indentation. So make sure that you start your code and you're writing your code everywhere intentionally. Great. So I'm going to tab over and start writing our code. So let's go back to the problem and let's be reminded of what exactly we want to do. We want to read in the name of 2 of your friends and say hello to them. And we know that the inputs are going to be on separate lines, so we can create 2 separate variables to store the inputs on those 2 separate lines. So let's go ahead and do that. So name1 is going to be assign the input, which is the first line of input that we receive, and name2 is going to be another input, which is the second line that we receive. So you can kind of imagine here at lines 8 and 9 in our code that name1, the variable is going to be storing Su Young, and name2 is going to be storing the variable Dr. Young for sample case 0. Great. And what we want to do is we want to print out hello in that name1 and hello in that name2. So let's go ahead and do that. Hello, and then name1, and then we can't forget about the exclamation point. And we can do the same thing for name2. And if we feel good about the solution, then we can submit this code as it is to Gradescope so that we can get immediate feedback about whether our code is correct or not. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm just going to save this, and then I'm going to go to Gradescope. And then on Gradescope, you should see an assignment called Practice Quiz. So you can left click on this, and you can click left click right here and find wherever your Python file is. In my case, it's in my downloads folder. Open this and click on upload. And what should happen is the auto grader should be grading your code right now, and you'll receive the results right away. So we can see right here that we see a lot of red. That's not good, but let's figure out why that's happening. So we can see that the input for test case 1 was Su Young and Dr. Young, as we expected. But for some reason, we're outputting hello Su Young, and there's a space between our name and the exclamation point in both of them, actually. Whereas the expected output is just a neat hello Su Young, but there's no rogue space kind of that infiltrated right between the name and the punctuation. So how do we go about fixing this? And we can see that actually that's the reason why all these test cases are failing. Hello mom and hello dad. The only difference is that little space right there, as well as right here. There's a little space. And actually we can take a look right here, and we can see that these test cases are failing because we just simply haven't written the code to problem 2 yet. So problem 2 is failing as we expect because we haven't written anything. So let's go ahead and fix our code so that we will get the points for problem 1. Well, the reason why it's doing that is because if we don't specify the separator to be the empty string rather, then the print function is just going to be adding in extra spaces everywhere between the strings. So in this case, it would be hello and then space name1, which in this case was Su Young, space exclamation mark or exclamation point, as we saw. But we don't want that to happen, so I'm going to specify for the separator to be the empty string for both of these. And let's see if this fixes the problem. So I'm going to go ahead and I save the file. I'm going to resubmit it. Resubmit this. Upload. And let's see what happens. Have we fixed the problem? Oh no, so we haven't fixed it yet, quite yet. So we want there to be a space between hello and the name. So let's go ahead and fix that. Hello, and then add in the space there and save this. And just in case, let's see if that really was the problem. Yeah, it looks like all of these test cases are failing for that same reason. So I'm going to resubmit it. And we can resubmit it by pressing the resubmit button in the bottom right. And let's see what the auto grader thinks. Have we submitted a working solution? And it looks like we have. So problem 1, we've passed the test cases for problem 1. So let's move on to problem 2. And we can see back to on our Canvas quiz page, problem 2 is sum 3 numbers, which asks us to complete the following program to read in 3 integers and compute their sum. And if we take a look at the input format, it's very similar to problem 1 in that the first line contained the first integer, and the second line contained the second integer, and the third line contained the third integer. All right, great. So let's go ahead and start writing our code, remembering to get rid of pass and also to start writing our code on this indentation where the cursor is right now. So like we did for problem 1, I'm just going to store the inputs, the 3 inputs into 3 different variables. So num1 is input, num2 is input, and num3 is input. And basically what it's going to do is take in the 3 inputs and store them in 3 separate variables. And what we want to do is print out, we want to print the output, which is just the sum of the 3 inputs. So we can see right here that we're given the integers 2, 5, and 12, but our sample output is 19. So basically 2 plus 5 plus 12 is 19, so we're printing out the sum. All right, so we can go ahead and do that. So we're gonna print out the sum of the 3 numbers. And that looks good to me. So let's go ahead and submit this to Gradescope again, and let's see what the auto grader thinks. All right, and it should evaluate our code soon. Looks like it's not working for some reason. All right, so the expected output was 19, but we're printing out 2,512 for some reason. That's really weird. And for problem 2, the expected output was negative 11, but we're printing 3 negative 206. And for the last one, printing 3 zeros instead of just a 0. What is going on there? Well, what's going on is actually that we've taken in the inputs and we've added them together, but what we're actually adding in this case is 3 strings. So we're adding the string 2 with the string 5 and the string 12 in that first example. So we're adding the string 2 and the string 5 and the string 12. And when you put plus signs between strings, you perform string concatenation. So you're actually just going to be kind of smushing these 3 strings together. So it's going to be the string 2, and then you're going to tag on a 5 in that string, and then you're going to tag on 12 on the string. So you're going to get a string 2,512. But we don't want that to happen. So, and the reason why this is happening is because input is returning to us a string right now. So we're going to change that. We're going to change it to int and cast the string to an integer. And once we've done that, let's save our code and let's resubmit it and see if it's working. And let's see if that solved our problem. All right, and the auto grader should evaluate the code. And as we can see, it looks like we've passed all of the tests. So there's actually nothing more for you to do here. If you just go back to your home, you can see that your practice quiz has been submitted. And yeah, there's really nothing else for you to do here. Basically, we've gotten your code, and your code has passed all the test cases. So there's one thing I'd actually like to note really quickly is that just because you pass all of the test cases doesn't necessarily mean that your code is correct. And that will become more clear later on, but what you should note is that if you do not pass the test cases, then we can't reward you points for the problem. In other words, um, we can only give you points for the test cases that you pass, but passing the test cases does not necessarily mean you'll get the points, because you have to follow the instructions of the problem. In this case, there weren't really any explicit instructions, but later on in the exam, and as we kind of progress in the course material, it'll be more clear when we ask you to solve a problem a certain way. And we'll be looking at your code closely to see whether you're doing it in the appropriate fashion. All right, but in this case, there wasn't really anything to do with that. And most likely for the first quiz and maybe even the first exam, there aren't going to be very strict restrictions on the way you solve a problem. So your goal should be at least to pass all of the test cases or pass as many test cases as you can. So that's all there really is to it. And there's nothing else for you to do on Canvas. You can just click submit quiz if you'd like, but we're actually not going to be doing anything with the practice quiz assignment on Canvas itself. We're going to be taking a look at the code that you submitted to Gradescope. So that's it for this. If you have any more questions, please feel free to kind of make a follow-up discussion on Piazza, or you can feel free to reach out to your TA or any other TA or the professor and email us or use Canvas. There are multiple ways of reaching out if you need any help. So I hope this was helpful. Thanks for watching.